I see myself as pretty much a pretty simple person. To be honest with you, I'm not complex at all. You know, I just see the things the way they are, and I just go with what I think is common sense. You know, I think we've lost some of our common sense. I think we have to. It's just a question of being simple. Try to just, when you think about it, when you have a son that's growing up, right? What kind of stuff will I be telling him how to grow up and things like that? I think there's one thing, if we were to ask him, I think he'd say, I've got my priorities in the right place. And each person's priorities are different, you know. But today, no, everybody should take an hour alone there in a room, closed, no electronics, nothing, and write them down. Or do an evaluation of where your priorities are today and try to figure out what would be the better priorities to make me happier and everybody else around me happier.
And welcome to another installment of Behind Greatness by Inspire. It is Luciano here as your host as usual. And of course, before we get into our next conversation here with our guest, I'd love to, number one, thank you for your auditory companionship. We've had quite a ride so far. It's closing in on 3 years of this podcast, and we're more or less we're releasing an episode a week since then. We've only missed 2 or 3 weeks. So again, thank you. Thank you for providing the drive for us to keep going. To remind the listener, especially new listeners, please take some time when you have a moment, rate us and then share. Donations as well are also welcome because we're not just a not-for-profit, we're also a charity, and that you can just go to the website behindgreatness.org if you feel so inclined. So here we go. Today we have a special guest from right on the border of Ontario and Quebec. And when I say right on the border, Alain is on the Ontario side of the border, just on the other side of the river. The border is along the river, right?
That's right.
It's a bilingual body of water. So this is Alain Menard. He co-founded the Green Beaver Company with his wife, Karen Clark, 21 years ago in 2002. After over a decade working as a microbiologist in the pharmaceutical industry and Karen as a biochemist in pesticides, they decided to quit their jobs and change their life's calling. The Green Beaver Company was hence born, which is also the same age as their son, Coco, who inspired them. Green Beaver's mission is to inspire people to live a healthier, natural lifestyle in a sustainable world. It delivers its mission by offering natural personal care products that are safe for the whole family. This includes natural products such as aluminum-free antiperspirants, toothpaste, sunscreens, baby products, and many more. And they are distributed across the country and also in select export markets near you. Alain also just recently opened an organic fromagerie. I know I'm mispronouncing things, so you have to forgive me.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. Called Fromagerie des Trois Rapides.
That's right.
Alain, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I've been wanting to do it for a while. I didn't tell you this. I've been wanting to do it actually ever since you and I had a very long conversation at the early outset of COVID.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I started to discover your other hobbies as well. So question, let's start with this. Why is your company, your brand called the Green Beaver Company? What's up with that?
Well, first of all, we wanted a name that says natural and something that says Canadian. Thus, the Green Beaver was born. And that was actually a debate that I had with my wife, which rarely happens. I really wanted to call it the Green Moose. I thought the moose is kind of nicer, you know, but we know who won that one.
Yeah, she won that debate. And what was her reason for not going to moose?
She thinks that they're ugly and she likes cute little beavers. She said it doesn't compare. I mean, look at it. Big nose, the antlers, things all crooked. And,
True. It doesn't
yeah,
mean
yeah.
it's not majestic, but the beaver is pretty industrious.
Yes, that he is. Yeah, real little engineers. It's amazing. Eh? They're amazing animals when you think about it.
Yeah, yeah. The first time I saw a beaver, it was actually along the Humber River in Toronto, and
Wow.
more or less when you started your company, I would say like, yeah, it was about 20, 22 years ago, and I used to rollerblade with a buddy of mine
Okay.
back in the rollerblading days, and along this part of the river, I didn't know it was a dam, but as I was approaching it, I saw all these mid-sized trees chewed up and chewed
Oh
down.
yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I saw this thing. It just looks like a giant rat, but
Yeah. Well,
it's
it
a
is a rodent, part of the rodent family.
it's a rat with a
But a
plan.
smart one. Yeah, a rat with a brain.
So let's set it up here because for the listener, also the reason why we wanted to have you on is because number one, you're an entrepreneur, and we like to talk to entrepreneurs. We like to talk to entrepreneurs because they're creators, just like many of the scientists that we have on, just like many of the artists that we have on, writers, sculptors, painters, and so forth, and musicians. Did you ever aspire to create your own thing when you were studying, when you were a student?
When I was a student, no, not really. I think at that time, really, it was just see what it's like working for a big pharmaceutical company.
And what was it like?
But I found myself, I was like being like a little entrepreneur in the company. So I wasn't just following the rules, trying to think out of the box. And I think over time, just being, let's say, put in my place, if you want.
Mhm.
And I was doing very well, but still, something in me was, I don't know, it's kind of hard feeling to describe, but just, yeah, wanted to break free. I remember when we started a company, I always said, oh, we're never going to run it like they do in these big companies with all these meetings, this and that. It's a waste of time.
But
Well, I found out over time, if you have a company that's growing with a lot of employees, you need some structure.
of course,
It's okay. It's just me and my wife, no structure. That's fine. But as it gets bigger, you understand. Oh yeah, that's why they were doing all those meetings.
you said your wife, when you and I were first having a chat before this call here. You said your wife was the pesticide queen during the day and Mother Nature at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
explain.
Well, basically, she was working for a pesticide company, and this is at the time when we started talking about, well, we're planning a family. And what happened is I guess I must have just finished cleaning the floor with some fluorescent green cleaner or whatever, and she just had a mental vision of a baby crawling on the floor after I just washed it. And they're always putting little fingers in their mouths
Mm-hmm.
and thinking, oh my God, baby's going to be eating some of that fluorescent green stuff that you just use on the floor. It's like a light bulb. Or maybe it was sort of like the mother hen or the parent instinct that was started to kick in, saying, whoa, I got to get the nest ready. And then we started looking at all the other stuff that we had in our house. And like most people, and if you want to do the exercise, you'll see how it's surprising, but we bring in so many chemicals in our homes, not knowingly most of the time, because most people don't know what are in those products, right? It's like, this is your home. You're bringing chemicals in, to wash whatever, the bathtub, the floor, laundry detergent that smells like I don't know what. And a lot of those stuff are releasing all kinds of what they call VOCs, they're volatile organic compounds, and we're breathing it in. And, oh my God.
You mentioned, I didn't know this, that talcum powder is terrible for you.
Yeah.
And it's proven to cause cancer and
Yes.
linked
Yeah,
to ovarian cancer.
That's right. That's relatively recent, and one of the big manufacturers or the brands of talcum powder or baby powder, it's a bit more known as baby powder,
Mm-hmm.
is actually got sued and lost.
I grew up on the stuff. So, I'm a baby of the late 70s and 80s. That
Yeah,
was just everywhere. Everybody used it.
everywhere.
You smell
And,
talcum powder, baby powder everywhere, everywhere you
and
went.
it's that, and the worst is it is so fine, you do breathe that stuff in.
Hmm.
That's
So,
just one example of many other products that people sometimes don't make the link because, well, it's always been there. We grew up with it, right?
well, we can go down the road here to talk about the different chemicals, and maybe we will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a no-brainer. So for the listener who's starting to tune in here, I don't think they'd be surprised to hear and would agree with many of the recommendations you might give, because this is not about Green Beaver. This is about your story, and part of your story is that you discovered this. We're not talking about 50 years ago, 70 years ago, 60 years ago. You start to discover this as a scientist, you and your, when I say you, the both of you, plural.
Mm-hmm.
And you started to produce things on the side that were more natural for your potential family. And again, only 20 years ago, only 20, and you were hitting roadblocks. You were getting a lot of friction. Why?
Well, first of all, when we would talk to people about these chemicals, a lot of them would just roll their eyes because, now, come on, how can that be dangerous? Like when you talk about the aluminum in the antiperspirants, everybody's using it. So, and we're all alive. What's going? So that was the first thing: skepticism that these things could potentially be harmful for your health. And in the last 20 years, a lot of studies are starting to show that they are harmful. Just real quickly, the aluminum antiperspirants, most people don't realize that the FDA has forced the company to put a mandatory warning on the labels. And a lot of them, because they're American companies, you'll find the same warnings on antiperspirants being sold in Canada. And it says, do not apply on broken skin, and discuss with your doctor before using this product if you have kidney disease. 20 years ago, I always said that stuff was getting into the body.
So you mentioned this to me before. If you put it in perspective, if you're using a product to care for your person, so personal care product,
Yeah.
and you are being warned not to use it on your skin, and anybody's skin at any moment in time will have cracks and lesions in it because we're human beings.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. What is that? Maybe this is a rhetorical question. What does that say to our loss of connection to nature?
Totally. For some people, antiperspirants are natural. It comes from it's always been around. It's part of life. It's like we don't question it, and I understand why. Why would you? You know what I mean? It's all your parents use it. Everybody uses it. You don't think anything bad about them.
Yeah, you told me 20 years ago, sorry, just to kind of round this off, you said you would get people when you'd approach people, especially moms with children, nice, especially
yeah.
moms, they would say, it's natural, but is it safe?
Yeah. 20 years ago. It's unbelievable how the table has turned. I mean, I talk to these millennial moms and there's like, and they're almost trying to sell me on natural, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was frustrating because they just didn't understand it, but in the last 20 years, studies, and you see it everywhere, like recently, a couple of years ago, benzene found in conventional sunscreen, which is cancer causing. There was some recalls.
Yeah, the spray sunscreen you were saying, right?
Yeah, the spray sunscreen and actually some lotions as well, but not many. It's mostly spray sunscreens, And then
I only used 5 liters of that in Mexico when I was there in January or in December.
Yeah. Yeah.
Glad
And
we're talking now.
that's, for example, do people know that the active ingredients in those conventional sunscreen actually does penetrate the skin? And there's like tons of studies out there that have shown that after only one application, they found it in urine and blood and even in breast milk.
Holy smokes.
And these are studies that have been done and redone and validated, published in peer medical review journals, But it seems like I don't know why that information just doesn't get out and people don't grasp it and do something about it. It's like.
So we talked about your parents, because when I asked you, so let's link this to your parents. Because I asked you, what did your parents think when you decided to go off on your own? Because we had Jim Estel here, who's the CEO of Danby, and he's now in his early 60s. And when he went to school to be an engineer, and he told his parents that he wanted to run his own business, he didn't want to work for an engineering company. And he said his mother cried. And his father said, okay, but at least you're an engineer. So when you fail, you'll be able to get a job. And so, but your parents,
my parents, they were upset. They weren't happy about the whole thing. But my dad said the same thing. He said, well, he told my mom, well, don't worry. If it doesn't work, he can always go back into pharmaceutical. Better that he gets it over with now. If it,
gets it out of his system.
Yeah, no, same thing. Yeah, they come from another generation as well, and it's for them, they just couldn't believe it because, well, first of all, I was growing up, like my dad was a mechanic, my mom was a hairdresser, and all they wanted for me is to go to university. I had that being told to me. I think probably my mom was probably whispering it into my ears as a baby. There was no question that I was not going to go. So, and when they saw that I did it, and then I got a really great job, they were really proud of me. And then all of a sudden I come around and I said, well, I'm quitting. I'm leaving all this behind. Whoo. Yeah.
Let's go over a little bit of context just to fill in some gaps there, because I want to go to a question that I had about maybe beliefs. You grew up in a very small town. You said 300 or 400 people, and that you were always outside.
Oh, always year round. Probably even more in the winter because we had a hockey rink. So that's all we did is play hockey all winter, and then summer while it's fishing, and it's always like biking everywhere. And it was like you never knew where you're going to sleep. It's just a small town, right? That I'm sleeping over. All us kids had tents outside in the back of the house. So we just ended up sleeping wherever we were at that night, and then the moms would call each other. Oh, okay, they're over here now. I'll make them dinner. That's fine, And I look at kids today and the way things have changed. It's unfortunate, I was very fortunate to have grow up like that in an environment like that, felt safe,
For me, we've said this on a podcast too, that kind of upbringing is a dream for me, like to have park space, trees, stuff to climb, throw myself into leaves, catch frogs. That would have been, I was a suburban kid. But every time I was in that kind of environment, I loved it.
Yeah. And we didn't have those days. In those days, we didn't have the computers, the cell phones, all these games and things, right? We had created our own games. Forts,
And it was your dad. You said you wanted to go into forestry, but your dad urged you to go into or study the sciences. Is that right?
Yeah, because it was done. In my mind, I was going to Lakehead University in Thunder Bay. Really,
which is
good
northern Ontario.
School. Yeah, really good forestry school. And then it was that spring, I'd already sent all my application. And I know I hadn't even been approved. So it would have been maybe May, June. And then there was a collapse in the forestry industry, which happens. It's cyclical, right? So, and all my dad was reading in the newspaper in the headlines, it's like, there's no layoffs here, and there's no jobs and this. So he said, well, I think you should change. No use going in forestry, which was a wise move. But then again, I would have loved to work in the forestry, especially now with all the new stuff that's coming out. The science is showing that the roots can share chemicals, or not chemicals, but ingredients, food, and they can communicate, and it's fascinating.
Well, this is why I loved our discussion during COVID, because I found out that you have a few acres of land where you live on, and you are, to use your words, you are almost sustainable. So you grow your own food and the such.
Yeah, that's a big passion of mine. So from spring, to fall, I have a greenhouse and all the equipment and stuff, and it's like when people will ask me, or I'll tell people about my tomato plants, and then they find out, like he grows like 100 of them, all on trellises, and it's like, I have raspberries, around 300 feet of it. Gets out of control.
300 feet of raspberries, really?
Oh yeah. Lots of mixed raspberries. There's blueberries or blackberries, and not blueberries. Sorry, blackberries.
Well, blackberries even tastier.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of fun doing that. It's like, and then the thing is, it's starting it. I'm going to start around 4 weeks from now in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So all my little tomatoes, and pepper plants, and things. And it's what I like about it is there's different phases, right? Getting the cultures going, and then it's getting the beds ready, and then it's the planting, and then it's the pruning, and then it's finally you get to start to eat some. And then it doesn't end there. Then there's the preserving. So whether it's canning or freezing, or I have a food dehydrator, it's great. I love it. It's so it's a good way for me anyhow to get some kind of balance in my life, because when you're running a company, it can be pretty hectic at times, right?
Yeah, we talked about that too. These are your words. You said, if you want to clear your mind, do the opposite of what you're thinking. What does that mean?
Well, basically, a lot of times we're always thinking about things that are bothering us, and you get into this loop, right? And if you're conscious and you kind of listen to your mind, look at where it's going, it always comes back. It comes back. It comes back. And it's like, oh my God, I'm wasting all this energy on something that, you know what, there's nothing I can do about it right now. Park it. I've learned to park things. I'll deal with that on Monday. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Then start thinking about things you like, things that get you in that Zen mode,
And what gives you Zen?
Of course, there's the whole gardening part, but the gardening part is because also don't forget you have your hands in the dirt and you're playing with plants, and it just connects you to the ground, right? Or it can be in the winter months, like this time of year, do a lot of wood carving, which I love. That also, you have to concentrate because you don't want to cut your finger or something, do a lot of spoons and things like that. And got a wood lathe now, which also is kind of, intimidating there, but I'll get the hang of it. But when you're doing that, you're so concentrated, you can't think about whatever was bugging you at work or whatever, and it just, because I'll get home, like 5 kilometers countryside from work. So, and if I have a day, it's like back-to-back meetings, a lot of discussion, this, that, and I get home, you can't just switch the light off. It doesn't work that way. You got to do something, and something I can be tired. And this is unbelievable. I can go and just work on the spoon or something, for a half hour. I'll get up and it's like, oh my God. Says this, I just had like a snooze, or, I'm feeling rested. Whew. The mind is clear. It seems like my energy comes back up. It's unbelievable.
We had a discussion with Anthony Chilapati, who's also another entrepreneur. And he tries to look for people who lose track of time. There are a couple more that have said this recently on the podcast too. When you are in a state of creation, Diana Pasolka, that's right. We were talking to Diana Pasolka about creativity. When you're in a state of creation, I'm going to say that you are really outside of your own body.
Yeah. And you can keep going and going. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Because you're right. You can't, and the mind can be in the creation part, you can't structure it too much. If you want to go a little bit more that way, let it go. And then you come back and you go here, you go here, you go here, you go. But it's progressing, and then it kind of starts coming together. Yeah, you got to let your mind go sometimes. Let your mind lead you when it's things like being creative, of course. But there's another side to that too. We have to be careful.
Is it your mind leading you? Is that what you believe is leading you when you are lost?
It's doing what it wants to do there. It's in that creative thinking. It's having fun, putting all of this stuff together. But the thing is that you got to be careful, because sometimes the mind, something happened at work or whatever, something bugged you, but then all of a sudden the mind is like, gets caught in this, right? You got to bring it back in, say, hey, no, enough. Yes, we have to think about it, but okay, now it's time to put it aside. I think that's the whole thing about anxiety, and there's a lot of it, stress in the general population now. And there was always some stress. I'm sure it always existed.
Mm-hmm.
It's mankind. It just seems like there's more of it. Maybe not. It's hard to say. It just seems like, because you hear it a lot about it. Or maybe it's just because people now are starting to understand it and accept it, that it's an illness like many other illnesses.
So learning more about you, and knowing, I mean, we've known each other for a few years now, at least. And as a disclaimer, we also do business together, which is also fun.
Yeah, of course.
But what I like about you is you have this outlet, like most people I know who grew up in the countryside, or with more natural surroundings than a cityscape, to liberate yourself. No, you lose yourself in your natural surroundings, and I think it's very easy to then be in a creative mode when you are when you don't have the stresses of cement and steel and rubber around you.
Yeah, actually, I built this pine cabin in the bush.
Mm-hmm.
Can't see nobody from there. No neighbor, nothing. Right on the river. Right? That's where I do most of my thinking.
In which you built?
No electricity. There's no electricity in the cabin there.
Oh, in the house you built, you think?
Yeah. And it's all wood. And there were some dead cedars on the property. And actually, I used some of the dead cedars inside of the cabin, so that what used to be there is now part still of the ecosystem, if you want.
Wonderful.
There's a complete disconnect. It's that's also, it's great for creativity, but at the same time too, they used to say work-life balance. It used to be like a balance. It's work and then friends and family. But I think there's another dimension now. You got to put the you in there somewhere. I think it's a three-way balance. People forget about that, and not everybody needs a cabin in the bush. It can be just a special spot in the house or a chair, or it's that whole, like, I remember reading a book called I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but some say Hig or Hig, Hygge, and it's Danish, and it's about being mindfulness, trying to get mindfulness. And they say everybody should have, like, create a little spot somewhere. Can be, okay, that's my little chair in the corner that I like to go sometimes. It's just, without a phone or a computer.
I'm going to say it again. I don't mean to sound patronizing, but this is why I personally feel a little envious of folks who've had nature at their disposal as young kids, because that is your natural go-to. Because going back to your cabin, thank you for that prompt too, because I wanted to prompt you on it, and you got there first. You said when you were starting your company, it was you and your wife. The warehouse was in your basement, and you said you were in the house a lot, and that you had cabin fever, so you just went out and built a cabin.
That's the only way to get rid of cabin fever. Build a cabin, get out.
The only guy I
Something
know.
inside, I guess, was telling me that, you know what? Work is in the house, family's in the house. So there was no more separation there,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think that's why I just needed to get out. And I thought, oh, I'm getting cabin fever. And that's when I had the idea. That was the best thing I ever did. I think one of the best things I ever did.
In university, you were part of a club. I had no idea this thing even existed.
Yeah.
The Woodsmen.
Woodsman. Yeah.
And you traveled across Canada for this? You just explained that a
even,
little bit.
even in the States. So basically it was hard work. So it's a varsity team, varsity sport, and there's no chainsaws involved there. It's just the old woodsman way, with the crosscut, the sweet bow, the axe drawing, and all of that stuff. The felling, and traveled everywhere. We were in Pennsylvania, Maine. We even went to Toronto. Actually, University of Toronto have a woodsman team, or they did. Probably still do. I'm sure.
I had no idea this was even a thing. Like, how did you train for this, or did you train for this? How did you practice?
Oh no, it was like a lot of training. It was like at least 3 practices a week, and they
Cutting
were
trees,
early. They were like 6 o'clock. Yeah, well, what they do basically, they have these big, like, looks like big telephone posts, I guess, but they're pine.
Mm-hmm.
They dig a hole and they just erect them and put it in the hole. And that's what you're felling. And when you're felling, the whole idea is that they put like a big nail in the ground. So when you're competing, and let's say there's 6 teams, it'd be 6 of these things going on at the same time, all at the same time. And it's the first one to bring it down. It's a question of time and precision. How close, or did you get that nail?
Oh,
yeah. So it's very technical as well. And team, like when you do the crosscut, you rely on the other person on the other end too. It was great.
Yeah, you had to be physically.
But it was
fit.
early. The practices were 6 o'clock in the morning. This could be like February, like, right? It could have been -20. We were outside.
So Canadian. This is so. I love this. But
get up at 5:15, just eat a little something in the car, go. Oh my God!
And
I remember sometimes just freezing.
That got in the way of your hockey practices too, right?
Yeah. Well, we'd get back from there around 8 because classes started at 9. So I had time to shower, eat, and then, we'd go to school because I was at McGill University, but I was at the McDonald campus.
So McGill for non-Canadian listeners, McGill is Montreal. So where you grew up and where you are now, it basically is an hour away. You're in between Ottawa and Montreal. So an hour each way, more or less.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So an hour from Montreal, an hour from Ottawa.
So you were saying?
Oh, well, it was just great because it was a small campus, but part of a big university. And then we had our own arena on campus, which were there for the students. So it was all day, anytime, shinny hockey every day.
The dream.
Went to school every day with a hockey stick and the two skates in it, and my school bag. You'd see everybody with, sticks and skates everywhere. Leave them outside the room. Nobody would steal anything. Oh, that was fun.
Amazing. And you right before this recording, you were telling me that your son also enjoys the outdoors.
Yeah, he sure did last summer, but not all the time. He was tree planting up north. I remember, I think it was his 3rd day. He had bought like a pretty expensive tent and everything. And he was north of Manitoba at that time. And then they moved him to Ontario. Major storm, big winds. Half of them lost their tents. Half of them, no, it was just rain, but just very, very strong winds. Lost his tent. Half of them lost their tents. They had to go sleep in the bus. So it's like that was an awakening.
He could have built a cabin like his dad.
Yeah. I don't know. Like he slept in a tent basically for 3 months in the bush.
Wow. That's rough.
With the bugs and everything. So, he came back. Honestly, it changes a young man. To have lived like that for 3 months, it's a great experience. I would recommend it to every young Canadian there. Who would do it for a summer? See what it's like. Live in the bush.
What was the change that you saw?
Well, he said in his words, basically, when you're at school and you're studying in philosophy and French literature. Well, all the other students kind of think that are in the same course as you. They kind of think like you a bit. And what he really liked is that he met all kinds of people from everywhere, from the prairies, and some of these people are like in their 20s or 30s. They go and they plant trees in the summer, and the winter they work on the ski hills or whatever. So he said, just met people that have different perspective of things. So he got to see different points of view, and he said he really found that interesting. Instead of being always just around other students.
This is something that we want to explore more because it's a simple thing. I like talking to you as well because you present things very simply, and your stories are natural stories.
Yeah,
and they're about play.
gotta have fun.
Gotta have fun. Gotta have fun.
Oh, sorry, I gotta tell you this one.
Yeah.
He came back, right? He calls me. He was back in Toronto, and I guess he goes at U of T. He said, I was in the Starbucks or Tim Hortons, whatever. He said, I had to get out. I said, what's the matter? He said, there was a guy there that was standing in line, and it was taking a little bit of time. And he just started complaining and this and that. He said, I just don't get it anymore. Why? I don't get it. Like when you've been in the bush for 3 months, living in a tent, you're put back into society and you see something like that. It's like, I don't get it. Why would you react like that? They're working as fast as they can there, Sorry, I didn't want to off track, but I just remembered that. I thought it was a nice story.
No, my friend, that's not off track. That is, we need to get more, and we have gotten people who've lived an indigenous way of life just to help with more perspective here. But that's what this is, right? I mean, we're talking about play. We're talking about perspective. We're talking about connection. For your son, for your 20 or 21-year-old son to tell you this story, I'm going to say that that's already a wisening young man.
Yeah.
We need
Connected
more people.
to the nature, camaraderie,
Yeah, who cares about your cafe latte being 10 minutes instead of 8 minutes?
No, like he couldn't stand it. He couldn't stay in there. He had to get out. He said, I was just like it was horrible. He said.
Let's very quickly, because I want to circle back very quickly to your parents, because I brought this up a while ago in the conversation. Because your parents were responsible for you having the childhood you had, right? Like you were exploring, you were living in nature, and you were loving nature. And they looked down upon your change, or maybe they were worried. I should say maybe they were worried about it, right?
Yeah.
And they were quite skeptical about the change going from pharmaceutical to your own natural products. And then I asked you, I don't know if you remember how you answered. I said, but your parents grew up the natural way. They encouraged you to grow up with nature. Why were they so skeptical? Do you remember what you said?
Probably something. It depends if I look at it I'm trying to put myself in their shoes.
Well, let me give you a small reminder. You said, ironically, growing up, your parents never used pesticides. They used natural methods.
But that's the way it always. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We had big gardens growing up. Never used any chemicals or things. But there was another factor in there too. And that was and that they knew. I think they knew that I was doing it a bit for her too. It was my small sister. She had been diagnosed at the age of 33, right around that time, with breast cancer. And she had 3 boys under the age of 3. There were twins in there. The oldest was 3, and the twins would have been like 18 months. And I remember thinking, and after we found out it wasn't hereditary, there's different types of breast cancer. And I thought, well, something must have maybe clinched it. I mean, we're exposed to toxins every day. We breathe some from our foods and our water, in our homes. And, and the body's amazing. We can get rid of a lot of toxins. It's amazing. But the problem is, I think, in some people, maybe what's happening, and this would be an interesting study, is that you take some in and you eliminate some. You eliminate some by breathing. I remember as a young man, you go out and drink beer, and the next day you can almost taste it. And the toxin of the alcohols are coming out through your lungs. And of course, through your kidneys and your urine, some through the sweat, but not much. But the thing is that if there's accumulation, it's coming in faster than you can eliminate it. And that's when you start having issues. That's when you have and a lot of these chemicals, what they do when they're in your body, because for example, when you put whatever lotion, whatever artificial fragrance, whatever, some of it will get through your skin, but it just doesn't sit there. It gets into the blood system and starts going everywhere, right? And a lot of these chemicals, they're like what they call endocrine disruptors or xenoestrogens. Basically, what they do is that they kind of mimic hormones. Our bodies are full of hormones. That's what drives us, We have hormones to tell us, what? You start running that way. We have hormones to say, what? You better start sweating because your body's way too hot here, So we have all of these hormones that basically we use as a way to get the organs to communicate together and work together and so forth. But then all of a sudden you have these chemicals that's going through your bodies, and they look like hormones, and they're hitting all these receptors on the cells, right? And they're saying, well, okay, well, you start multiplying, or you stop doing this, or, and some people, have all the same immune system, but some people, it can lead to very serious illnesses. And I always thought that my sister, that, will never know what happened, but for sure, at 33 years old with breast cancer is young, and I always remember her always very big on perfumes and things. She was very beautiful person. And I always wondered, what, maybe a lot of the chemicals that she was exposing herself to probably didn't help. I'm not saying that's what caused it. We'll never know. And when we decided, Karen and I, to start the Green Beaver, we had started the whole working on our own products and at home and giving some to family and things like that. Like my sister would have been one of our testers, if you want, for the creams and things like that. And that's when she was diagnosed. And that for me was like, okay, you know what? That's it. That doesn't make sense. Enough is enough. And we have done research, and the more we were looking into it, it was like, it's unbelievable. For example, formaldehyde. Did you know that today formaldehyde is approved by Health Canada to be used in personal care products as a preservative? 0.2% for creams and lotions. Oh, but when it comes to oral care, only 0.1%. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's cancer causing. And the worst is that you don't see it on the labels, because what they do, and I saw that in pharmaceutical, they would, you take this pill 3 times a day, but they put it into a slow release version. So they take the formaldehyde, put it in a slow release version, which means it releases it slowly. It's a formulator's dream, because you don't get a peak in the trough. But because of that, they can change the name. It's called identoin, quaternium, and it's like, oh my God, it's everywhere.
Because it's slow release, they can call it a different name.
Yes.
But it's still the same chemical being released.
Same chemical. Same.
So it's the process. The process is what allows you to rename it.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Different name. And the worst is that if the regulation says, okay, you can use it up to 0.2% in a cream, body lotion, let's say. But the thing is that, okay, so what that's saying to me is that they've determined that at that level, it's safe. Again, like I said earlier, the body will absorb, but will get rid of a lot of it, right? But the problem is with that regulation, it doesn't take into account human behavior. And that is, what if, and a study had shown that was in the States that some like 66% of baby products contain formaldehyde slow releasers. So what if you're you're washing the baby, for example, with a head to toe shampoo type thing, and then that has the quaternium, that has the formaldehyde, and then you're putting a lotion on them that has formaldehyde. Well, then am I surpassing my supposedly safe 0.2% of formaldehyde for that day? Think about it. The regulation does not take into account the human behavior factor. That is, we use more than one product a day. Shampoo, conditioner, soap, antiperspirant, toothpaste, cream. I mean, it goes on, right? So my parents, come back to so my parents, I think they knew it too. They knew I was doing it also for my sister. I wanted to go out and tell everybody. I mean, Green Beaver was not born with a business plan. It took me 15 years to write my first business plan after we started the company. Green Beaver was actually born with a mission to go out there and get the word out, tell people about all this nasty stuff, and that it should stop. It's not right.
Been doing a pretty good job, but you've been grinding it away.
Yeah, and it's encouraging. Like I said earlier, we're talking about the millennium bombs. That's very encouraging. Yeah. I think if nothing would have changed in 20 years, I'd probably be a little bit discouraged by now. But you know what? By seeing people finally seeing and understanding, and you see that movement against the chemicals in our products and our food, it's. I think it's going to take a couple of generations. It's like me growing up. I had never heard of recycling.
Sure.
It didn't exist. Right. And by now, like our son, of course, he would never just throw out something. He'd feel guilty. It's like, no, that's part of how we do things. We recycle. So I think it's going to happen.
You also said that at a point when you were little, or when we were little, because I think we're the same generation, your parents' generation were taught that there was a better living through chemistry.
Well, back then, that generation growing up, anything that was like chemical was like seen, that came out of a chemical lab was seen as progress, right? I don't know how the marketers were able, for example, to convince people that artificial strawberry flavor is better than the real strawberry flavor, but they didn't. Nobody thought any of it. Actually, they thought, wow, it's really good tasting. And these are chemicals. So yeah, in those days, I mean, everything that came out, anything chemical was seen as progress.
Changed beliefs.
It wasn't questioned. If they have it out there, it must be safe. Basically, attitude or mentality, I should say.
Yeah. I was saying that they were able to change marketers, or the message was able to change beliefs. But I wonder if changing beliefs is accurate, because there must have been an absence there. Like there must have been, I don't think it was a swapping out of beliefs. I think there was a vacuum there that the message was filling, and it's not making sense to me. Because anybody growing up with take your example, eating strawberries, understanding when strawberries were in season or not. Hey, that's where it is. When the strawberries are not in season and you still crave strawberries.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It was just, I mean, they do it just to make money. Ultimately, that's it. That's all. Right.
Of course.
Yeah, there was no money in artificial strawberry flavors. It would never have came about. Yeah, that would make sense. And probably because it's cheaper.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, it's always cheaper. Question for you. A couple of questions for you. I know we've never talked about this before, but humor me. What do you think your last words might be? Or thoughts?
Yeah. For humanity, I would say, take care of Mother Nature. She won't be able to help you down the road if we continue treating her abusing her the way that we are. I mean, I don't know any animal that would actually go and contaminate their source, food source, and water supply. And there's something just not quite right. We're seeing it now, this whole, we're seeing it. But I remember, I'm sure you remember, not that long ago, 10, 15 years ago, when people were talking about climate change, you had like these people, some of them were scientists going on about that. It's not true. It's not happening, Unfortunately, it is.
Last question. What is greatness to you?
I'd say if you have the right balance, and if you're a balanced person, I see myself as pretty much a pretty simple person. To be honest with you, I'm not complex at all. I just see the things the way they are, and I just go with what I think is common sense. I think we've lost some of our common sense. I think we have to. It's just a question of being simple. Try to just, when you think about it, when you have a son that's growing up, right? What kind of stuff will I be telling him how to grow up and things like that? I think there's one thing, if we were to ask him, I think he'd say, I've got my priorities in the right place. And each person's priorities are different, But today, no, everybody should take an hour alone there in the room, closed, no electronics, nothing, and write them down, or do an evaluation of where your priorities are today, and try to figure out what would be the better priorities to make me happier and everybody else around me happier. I think that would be a good exercise for everybody.
Maybe we should start a group to do that at your place and feed off the raspberries and tomato plants while we do it.
You'll have to fight the turkeys. They like them too.
Well, we'll do it at Thanksgiving, so we'll have protein.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. I think people are, they're not grounded. Most people are not grounded at all. It's more about what's the next, whatever Netflix series and this and that. It's okay. Entertainment is fine there. But it seems like, they're more concerns about stuff that's not even good for them. Strange. We're a strange species. Very strange.
We are. But we're not strange. We're not too strange not to appreciate going and visiting the next new fromagerie in the countryside.
I hope not.
That
well,
always
I hope
appeals.
people are going to come. Yes.
That always appeals to people. No, and I'm being serious here. That always appeals to people. That little place that does things authentically, genuinely. What are they about?
Yes.
Let's check that out. And then you'd share that with your friends. As distracted as we are, that is always piquing interest with human beings.
It's coming back. It's very strange. You've seen it in the beer market,
Yeah, craft beers.
Craft beers came back. Craft cheese is coming back. And it's all like
rooftop gardens.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. People are going to start, and they'll realize the difference,
It's a good start.
Like, this actually tastes like something. Wow.
Alain, thank you for your time here, man. It's a very good chat. Finally.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. Oh, well, there was no race, right?
That's right. But thank you. Thank you for one last thing, if I can add my own comment. Thank you for reminding me about the simplicity of creating things. I think that's it's one of the great messages I'm taking. Play
time for your brain.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Alain.
It is. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to probably finish up my spoons. I have a really nice one. When you start working one and then something goes bad and then it's starting to shake little different what you thought you had when you were looking at that piece of wood, you know. And this one I found it had right in the middle. It was dark at the heart. It was very dark. Anyhow, when I got to the handle, it was a little bit pooty, you know, a little bit crumbly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I sanded it down, and it just makes a spoon, but the end is like this, but it's kind of open, and you see all the brown. It's really unique. I love it. So I'm gonna go oil it.
What's unique is this conversation, Alain. I'm glad we didn't press stop on the record. That's great. Well, and for the listener, we're recording this on a Sunday afternoon, and this is it's just so appropriate to have this kind of pace on a conversation on a Sunday afternoon. It's a good reminder.
Yeah,
it's a good reminder.
Yeah, during the week it would have been a little bit, you know, the mind is here or there, you know.
Yeah,
and it was a good choice.
Thank you, Alain.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
Thank you. You too.
You go play your drums?
No, I can't play that at all. I mean, I smash away at it. I do it, but I'm not any good at it.
I always wanted to play guitar, but that's one thing I could never do is musical instruments. I don't know what it is.
It's I don't have an answer to it.
Yeah,
I have the same mystery here.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, man. You too. You too.
Yeah.
Thanks. Ciao. Ciao.
Bye.
Hey, it's Enrico Colantoni here, actor, director, and dedicated napper. Like what you heard today, there's more to come. Make sure to subscribe to Behind Greatness and learn about our live events at inspirenorth.com. You'll also find links to our social media right on our website, so be sure to give us a like and follow. Until next time, stay inspired.